Well, welcome back to part 2 of Ruth, the book of Ruth, and the kinsman redeemer. I'd like to reintroduce the crew to you. We have Lewis from Columbia, Illinois, and Mike and Dana. Lewis down in Houston, Texas, and then out to the West Coast with the fruits and nuts with Chandra, and back to Brooklyn with me. Okay, good enough. Now we all know who we are, so let's get moving. Back to the book of Ruth. We were in chapter 2 and down in verse 21. So now we're going to find out how this all ends up. Verse 21. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said unto me, Thou shalt keep fast my young men until they have ended all the harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they met thee not in the other field. So keep fast by his maiden, the maidens of Boaz, to glean to the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and dwell in her mother-in-law. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I seek rest for thee, that thou mayest dwell with thee? And now it is not Boaz our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Now, well, we'll get into this. Let's look at the NIV here. It's a little easy. I should have used the NIV in this whole thing because it's a lot clearer with modern English. This old English can get really hard. So it says, One day Naomi and her mother-in-law said to her, My daughter, I should not try to find a home. Should I not try and find a home for you where you will be provided for? Is not Boaz with those whose servants' girls you have been a kinsman of ours? Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. The word for home is resting place. Winnowing means to free grain from the particles of chaff and dirt, especially by throwing it into the air and allowing the worst current to blow out the impurities. And that's they'd throw it up in the air, and they'd be in a place that was constructed so a breeze would blow through there, and as it was coming down, it would blow out the impurities, and when it hit, it would separate the seed from the chaff. That's what that's talking about. Verse 3, Wash thyself, and anoint thee, and put on raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have been done eating and drinking. And it shall come to pass, and it shall be, that when he lieth down, thou shalt mark his place where he shall lay, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. This, again, is to show surrender. You had to touch his feet, so if they were covered, you had to remove the covering. Another thing with the feet. The feet are very important throughout the Bible. That was your form of transportation. Would somebody read 3:5 down through the verse 12 of Ruth 3?
I will, yay. Okay, wait.
Okay, go for it.
And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn, and she came softly and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself. And behold, a woman lay at his feet. Who are you? Okay. And he said, oh, who art thou? There you go. And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. So the word skirt is the mantle. Ruth was asking Boaz to redeem her from the curse. It would mean Boaz would protect her. If Boaz does this, she has a kinsman redeemer. Did you want me to read the Ruth, the 10?
Yeah, read the next section.
All right.
Yeah.
And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I.
Okay, now, you see back in verse 11, she is called a virtuous woman. And to the best of my knowledge and understanding, she is the only woman in the entire Bible who is called a virtuous woman. There are others who were virtuous women, but she is the only one that it is stated she was a virtuous woman. And this is a Moabite, somebody who hated Israelites. It fascinates me how so many times in the Word you'll find it's the Gentiles who were the ones who are declared to be the best of the cream of the crop, the virtuous woman in this case. No, it doesn't say that is to the best of my understanding. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I did a word study on this word virtuous, and this is the only woman who's called a virtuous woman, and she was a Moabite. But she also gave up everything she knew. She forsook her gods. She forsook everything from her past, and she is called the virtuous woman. Something to think about as you stand as a son or a daughter of God, that as you forsake that which is behind, that you're considered a virtuous person. You want to do a great word study sometime, study that word virtuous. In fact, I've got a teaching on it that I'll do next year, early in the year sometime. All right, verse 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if thou wilt perform unto thee the part of the kinsman, well, let him do this kinsman's part. But if he doth not do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth, lie down until morning. And she lay at his feet until morning, and rose up before one could know another, and said unto him, and he said, Let it be known unto thee that the woman came in unto the floor. And he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley on her. And she went into the city, and when she came to her mother-in-law's, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley he gave to me. And he said to me, Go not empty to thy mother-in-law. And he said, Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until they have finished this thing out today. So Ruth went home to Naomi and explained to her everything that had happened the night before, that Boaz said, "Yep, we're going to do this." And so then at the end there, they're just saying, "Well, now we get to sit around and wait." How many of you have been in that position where you get to sit around and wait? It's not a lot of fun. There's something big coming up, and you get to sit around and wait.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is worse. That is sometimes worse than the actual thing that's going to happen. I can tell you from going to the doctors or other places where a big decision was being made, and sitting there waiting is the worst thing in the world.
So
It really is.
can you explain why the wording when it says "Who art thou, my daughter?" Like, I mean, and then, in context, then she told her all that the man had done to her. It's like, why couldn't she say what's wrong or what happened? She happened to say, "Who art thou, my daughter?" That's just kind of a weird way of asking what's wrong.
Old English is very difficult to deal with sometimes, as I've said in this teaching a couple of times. Old English, I mean, words don't mean the same thing now that they meant in 1620 or 1611 when the King James Version was translated. Words' meanings have changed. That's why sometimes it's better to actually go through and read this in a parallel version, going to a parallel thing like they have on Bible Hub, so you can see what it says in other language, in more modern language. And you can actually read it from how they translated it from the Aramaic as well, which may be different. And it's, this is just part of dealing with the King James Version.
John,
And I use
that one down. I'm on screen share and I can't, and we'll do it in the discussion room after we're done because I'm interested too. And the reason why I'm interested is because the barley harvest is very significant to Jesus Christ's resurrection, and they didn't recognize him either. And I want to find out about that. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. We'll write that down and email it to Mike and I, and we'll look at it because it may have some significance. I don't know if it meant she didn't know who she was. I'll be very honest. A lot of times with Old English, I have no idea what's being said. That's why at least one time, I put in the NIV because it was a little clearer. Should have done this from the NIV or from the ESV or one of the newer versions. All right, let's finish this up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying I like it though because if this is the old language, and it definitely it gets you to take notice at least, because when you read the modern versions, you'll just keep reading and reading and reading. Whereas when you're reading Old English, at least it makes you stop and take notice. That was said a little differently, and this is what she actually meant by it. So now it might make you think the next time you see it, you'll stop and notice it again and say, okay, back when it was talking here, this is what it meant, so that's probably what it means here. Versus when you read a modern version, you may not stop to think about that and the comparisons of the two. You might not do that as much.
Right. It's also not beyond the realm of possibility that there's an idiom involved or a figure of speech.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to consider those as you're reading along. And I'm just not that good that I've studied a little bit on figures of speech and idioms, but not nearly what some people have, and I don't have that kind of knowledge. So it could be something involved there that was a figure of speech or an idiom of the time. Maybe just because, I mean, who knows? I'm not going to try and guess. Mm-hmm. There's too many people who guess, like John says, who make up stuff about the Bible. I don't want to be one of those people.
Right.
So we'll look into it. That's a very good point. All right, chapter 4, verse 1. We're coming down the home stretch. Then went Boaz up to the gate, and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spoke came by. Unto him he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside and sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. Pretty evident, Boaz tells the other kinsman, have a seat, let's talk. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city. Sit ye down, and they sat down. Now, why did he do this? He wanted witnesses, reputable witnesses. The guys who sat at the gate were judges, technically. When it talks about men sitting in the gate, these were the judges. That's where the courts at the time would meet, at the gate of the city, and they would discuss all these matters. And you'll find that Lot was one of the judges of in Sodom. Lot was a judge in Sodom, and these were always trusted people. And if you had them as witnesses, you were set. So that's why Boaz called them in. He wants everything above board and legal. He asked the elders at the gate and the judges to join him so that all this would be legal above and be above board. Right. Verse 3. Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise these, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it. But if thou redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is none other to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee, and I will redeem it. So Boaz is basically just saying, look, Naomi's got this land that she has now because it was Elimelech's, and she's going to sell it. Now, if you want to tell me now, because if you won't, if you're not going to be the kinsman redeemer, I will be. Then said, verse 5, then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must also buy Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, in the name of the dead upon his inheritance. In other words, this is what I was talking about before. If you're going to buy this land, you also get Ruth as part of this deal, and you have to raise up a family unto Mahlon. Now he tells them this, verse 6, and the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance, and redeem thou my upright thyself, for I cannot redeem it. So there you have it. The other kinsman cannot buy the wife, or won't buy her, and it's all free and clear for Boaz to buy this parcel of land and have Ruth to wife. Verse 7. Now this was the manner of the former time in Israel concerning the redeeming and concerning changing. To confirm all things, the man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was testimony in Israel. Where they came up with the shoe bit, I have no idea. But it was an accepted sign that a contract had been made between the two. Said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders, unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that Elimelech's, and that was on Chilon and Mahlon, and the other hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead shall not be cut off from the brethren and the gate of this place. Ye are witnesses this day. And the people were in the gate, and the elders said, we are witnesses. the Lord maketh the woman that is come into the house of Rachel like Rachel and Leah, which the two did build the house of Israel, and now do thou worthy in Ephrat, and be famous in Bethlehem. So there you have the account of Boaz and Ruth at the time they lived in. I said it would be apparent why this is all important. You have to look down at verses 21 and 22, and we'll start in verse 12. Somebody want to read verse 12? I'm getting tongue-tied again.
I got it.
Okay.
Ruth 4:12 through 22. And let thy house be like the house of Boaz, to whom Tamar bare unto Judah of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of his young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said to Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thy old age. For thou, daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath bore him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the woman, her neighbor, gave it a name, saying, This is the son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez begat Hezron. Hezron begat Ram. Ram begat Abadiah. Abadabba. And Abadabba begot Nahshon. And Nahshon begot Salmon. And Salmon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed. And Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. So we are talking about Jesus' great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma.
Right. And it is extremely important. This was an attempt by the devil to twist the line. If Boaz and Ruth had not married, who knows if the line would have been cut off. If the line was cut off, where would we be with the Redeemer? I'm sure God had another plan up his sleeve. God always has another plan up his sleeve in case something fails. There's a good deal more about the kinsman Redeemer. If you want to find out about it, get yourself a concordance and go to work. And let me just say that while I was reading through this, it occurred to me there was one other time where there was a woman who was not a member of the house of Israel, and she became very famous, and she's also one of the ancestors of Jesus Christ. And that's what was her name? The woman who ran the inn in Jericho when Joshua came. I don't recall her name. I want to say Rachel, but I'm not sure that's right. She was a daughter. She was, she's called a prostitute. There's some versions that have that translated as an innkeeper, not a prostitute. Not all innkeepers were prostitutes, but all prostitutes were probably innkeepers. But in any case, it would be in around where it would be Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Joshua chapter 2 is where her name would be. I don't recall it. But in any case, she said that she would not turn in the spies that Joshua had sent out. And because she didn't turn them in, they spared her life. Well, if you check back through all the generations, you'll find that that woman was one of Jesus Christ's ancestors. So this is the second time that one of the that we know of where a Gentile actually kept the believers line going. And I think that's pretty neat that, because there's so much emphasis in the Hebrew scriptures about how Israel, everything was Israel. And yet Israel never fulfilled their part of the bargain. If you read that, it says, I will be your God and you shall be my people. And they were supposed to be the high priest unto the world, not a bunch of Ephedist snobs who said, hey, we're the chosen people. And, well, that's a whole other teaching. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the woman, I think her name was Rachel, the woman who was called the prostitute, and they saved her family, and she was also one of the ancestors of Jesus Christ. So I think that's pretty neat that that all works out, and God would always bring somebody into the scene who would save the Christ line, and that's part of the wonderfulness of Ruth, is that she did become that virtuous woman, and she helped save the Christ line. So, in any case, Mike, are you looking something up?
I certainly am. In response to Chandra's questions, the word "am I" with the little hyphen over top of it often gets translated "who." Sometimes it gets translated "how." Mainly asking the question, "How'd everything go?" Who? It just gets mistranslated in a lot of different places. There are versions that do have it saying, "How did everything go, my daughter?"
Not who
Ruth was being
right.
inquisitive. Yeah. So that's what I was looking up.
See, that's what you get, Chandra, from working this stuff. You learn that sometimes words just do not get translated correctly, and it's up to us to find. It's God's pleasure to hide the nuggets, and it's the kings. Now we aren't kings, but we are princesses and princesses, because our brother is the king. That makes us princes and princesses.
One thing that John points out in the One Day with the Creator class is that we misunderstand the Bible sometimes because of translation, transmission, and our understanding of the culture. Right. What you got to understand, when these scribes translated and transmitted these texts, that sometimes they just wrote down the wrong word, and we have to go back and match source with source to see that find the right word that goes in there. But that was a beautiful observation, because those are the type of questions as Christians we should be asking. What the heck is he talking about? I mean, if you don't have a stirred mind like that, then you're not going to get some of the meat and potatoes, because oftentimes in the scriptures, some of these things have been mistranslated to promote false doctrines over the course of history. And if we don't get worked up about it and excited about it like that, saying, wow, that's weird. I like Bob Wassong's Weird Angel Verses. He looks at things and says, wow, that's weird. And then he starts working it because it looks weird. And there's usually a lot of meat and potatoes in there. I mean, especially if it was done, because that's all the devil wants to do, is he wants to obscure the Word of God.
Well, and I haven't found it yet, but I can imagine, though, like I was just saying earlier, I mean, it's one thing when, okay, it was just a different translation issue. That's cool, right? That's easy peasy. But I can imagine that it could cover like this whole. There's beauty in these figures of speech. You know, there's beauty in these different metaphors or parables or what have you, and sometimes I can imagine that if something is translated a different way, it could almost destroy that beauty we were supposed to be able to see before, but we couldn't see it because now it's a different translation, and now that beauty is lost. If it was translated, you know, the way it was not supposed to be translated. I mean, in this case, it was just, oh, different culture, they speak differently, you know, whatever. But what if we needed to hear the way they talk as a culture, and you know, some translators will want to keep it here, but they don't keep it over there. You know how they like kind of pick and choose where to change things, and it's like, hey, well, what if that beauty was lost because now people won't make the connection between the person who said it here and the person who also said it over here. Now they're lost because one got changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
That's where when you get into words, prepositions, it gets really interesting. Because sometimes with a preposition, there are 6 different ways to translate it, and you just have to figure out which is the right way via the context.
Right.
Like the words and, pros, and ace, those all can be translated to, for, therefore. I mean, just different ways of translating them. And it's up to us to figure out which word was used and which way it was meant, what it's trying to say. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mike?
Yes, after I unmuted myself.
See, how can you get bored with the Bible? There's just no way. I mean, man, it's just craziness, because once you think you have it all, you know, now you got to go back in and figure all this stuff out. Now it just becomes, I mean, it's just so much, so much.
And what's really awesome is when you take a verse you've taught hundreds of times, and you sit there and you look at it and suddenly it goes like a flower, just opening up to you, and you see things there you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And that still happens to me 40 years after I started this. Last year, or a year and a half ago, it happened with for God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and it just suddenly opened up to me like I had never seen it before. And it's what keeps you excited about the Word, because you want to see where God's going to take you next, what He's going to blow you away with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I got
that
barley harvest thing, because I know how significant the feasts were for Israel, and the fact of how they represented Jesus Christ's ministry. So anytime you're reading about any of these harvests, they were harvesting, and they would have great feasts after these harvests. It usually is a very good implication. We always say the Bible's about Jesus Christ from Genesis 3:15 all the way through the book of Revelation, and a lot of times we miss them because we don't see the prophecies of His coming in the culture. But when I saw this 6 measures of the barley, and I understand when the barley harvest took place and how that was significant with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, right away I say, ooh, I want to check that out. I want to see Jesus everywhere. You know what I mean? Right.
And with measurements, I think that's a whole subject that's ripe for study. You know, was there significance within these measurements? Like 6 measures of barley. How much barley was that? Well, if you took it says she took her veil, she opened it up, and they poured it in, and she was able to carry it out. That's a lot of barley. That's a lot of barley. And, does that have some sort of a meaning, or does the veil, the fact that they put, all these questions should come up for you. And the longer you stay in the Word, the more the questions, you think you'd learn more and more and more, and you get settled in. It's not the truth. The more I learn, the more I want to learn. I want to learn, is there a significance to the barley harvest here?
The more you learn, the more rabbit holes you find to go down.
I don't know. Talking about all this barley, I'm about to go cook some oatmeal, though. I'm getting hungry.
Good one.
All right. Well, as interesting as this is, we're already almost at getting an hour and a half. I think that's good enough. So let's see, Mike, you want to, or Sandra, why don't you close this out with a prayer?
Alrighty. Heavenly Father, please be with all the listeners that were hearing it tonight, and our future listeners who will be hearing this in the future. Bless all the women who are growing, and all the older women who are teaching, and fathers and brothers as well who can teach their sisters and their friends and even their mothers, because we can always learn a lot from the babes, spiritual babes. And so I pray that this wonderful teaching can be with them and help them to learn the value in a virtuous woman. And I pray that we can all take note of these lovely greetings towards one another, putting you first in every single little thing that we do. Sometimes we can still forget, hey, we can put you here too. So I pray that even though it's just a tiny little thing, we can definitely add it in, and pray that we can do just that. And let's take it on and spread even more joy as far as we can take you. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So everybody wave goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The heart. Let's see the heart.
That's right.
Love it. I love it. Deanna started it.
Bye.